Hi again, everybody, and welcome into the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones, along with DJ Foster. And, of course, head coach Matt Mitchell to join us in a moment. Great show ahead for you here as we're coming to you live from the Main Street Pub in Allendale. DJ, what's on the menu tonight?
Well, we've got on the show menu, if you will, we have assistant coach Jim Lewis in his third year with the Lakers. We'll talk defense with him. And he brought one of his guys on that side of the ball, Marquez Goldman, a senior. Always will be a good interview. So Marquez Goldman and Jim Lewis will be on later in the show. And we'll talk about the big victory over Lake Erie, 55-7 last Saturday in Lubber Stadium.
Yeah, that's right. Coming up in the next segment, we'll break down that big win for the Lakers. That was in Week 2 as Grand Valley now 2-0. And this week, yet another home game. It's going to be against Northern Michigan. So that'll be the test this Saturday at Lubbers. All that coming up over the next half hour. It's the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
And back here on the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell. That was Steve Lloyd-Jones on the call on Marty Carter's second touchdown of the first quarter against Lake Erie last Saturday night. DJ Foster here with you, and we're about to bring in head coach Matt Mitchell. This weekly report is presented by GVSUteamshop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game. And we're here live at the Main Street Pub in Allendale. Now we bring in head coach Matt Mitchell with us. And, Coach, a second straight week, a second big blowout of an Ohio school, a GLIAC opponent. You led 42-0 at halftime, really got off to a good start, and then were able to get your starters out of there and get healthy and stay healthy throughout week 2.
Yeah, I thought our team, coaches and players had a good approach throughout the course of the week. Obviously coming off the opening win against Tiffin, really tried to hammer that. There were some areas that we weren't good enough in. We weren't up to our expectations. And so, a lot of times the coaching cliche is you see your most progress in your team from week 1 to week 2 within a football season. And, I will give our players and coaches credit. I thought we had a great approach to the week of preparation with Lake Erie College. It was not about Lake Erie. It was about Grand Valley football. And we worked to shore some things up. It also helped us, too, that we were able to get a couple guys off of injury. We started Nate Brady at the left guard position, which was a new lineup for us, as was Nick Fish at the right tackle position. So we had 2 new starters in the offensive line in that game. And then we got Alton Voss back off of an injury. I mean, most Laker fans know here the past couple of years the impact that Alton could have. And so getting him back in the lineup, was good too. So, we got off to a strong start, as you mentioned. I thought we played well. In almost 2 of the 3 phases. Our return game is still not where it needs to be. But the other phases, we were clicking. It was really fortunate for us, again, to start fast, to be aggressive in our calls, and to find ourselves up, as you said, 42-0 at halftime, and then get in and strategically make the choice at halftime to, pull all the main contributors from the game. But, I thought we approached things well in the second half with our staff and the guys that played, and really gave them some opportunities to run our offense or defense. We did not go into a shell in the second half. We continued to coach, continued to play. And those are, valuable experiences. I've talked a lot about that this week and the past couple of weeks on different media outlets about it's just really impossible to replicate game repetitions. And it doesn't matter. Lake Erie had their starters in offense and defense, and so our reserves were going up against them, and we were calling everything, and we just continued to play. And so that's good. That's good for short term if we have some injuries in 2016, and it's also good for the long-term health of our program that you get those guys those experiences and those exposures.
Mitch, through the first couple of games, so impressive offense and defense. I'm trying to see, from your perspective, how do you look at this as both are doing well. Who are you most impressed with? I mean, this defense is fantastic, but your offense nearly flawless at times.
Well, I think we probably all had expectations for our defense based on a couple factors. One, a complete returning staff. I think a lot of people forget that in 2015, we had some changes on the defensive side of the ball, just with the coordinating of the defense, and Jim Lewis will be on the show a little bit. But so we had continuity at a coaching staff position as we went from 15 to 16, and then we also had continuity from a player standpoint. We had a lot of returning starters back that played a lot of snaps of football in the 2015 season. So I think everyone in our building had expectations for great defensive performances early on in the season. And they've lived up to those expectations so far. I will temper that a little bit. Things are going to get more difficult as we move on down the road, as we start to face some other opponents. So I'm not quite sure where the 85 bears yet. There's some things that we can get better at. But I think offensively, we did some new things offensively. We put in, the pistol formation. We'd never ran any of that in 15. We brought in a consultant to help us install the pistol formation in the offseason, and I think that has helped, our offense in terms of our running game. And, we were replacing a lot of guys up front on the offensive line and, tight end positions. We lost Brandon Revenberg, who is going to get his first start with the Hamilton Tiger Cats here tomorrow night in the CFL, and you lose Jim Walsh, and you have Aaron Coxbacks who played, but the rest of the guys are all kind of, Walling played and DeLuca played, but not at the level we need for Grand Valley football. So there's a lot of new faces up there. And, they're progressing, and I thought they made some steps, from week 1 to week 2, and especially in the run game, we were able to do some things. And so it was important that unit made. So I don't know, it's hard to tell. I'm not going to say who I'm happier about. I think at this point in the season, I think if you're in our building all the time, like we have such high expectations, and I'm saying this word a lot, but it's just what it is. And so we are constantly very picky on the tape about trying to reach our maximum, reach our potential. And so that's a process, and we're continuing to work through that process. And we got to make sure that our internal scoreboard is held to a really high standard. The external scoreboard has been a little bit lopsided towards Grand Valley, but we also understand that there's some things coming on down the road. In fact, this Saturday against Northern Michigan that we need to make sure we're sharp for.
Here on the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell. Coach, the first highlight that we played was Marty Carter going 79 yards in 16 seconds to start the game. That obviously got you off to a great start, and then he added 2 more touchdowns, 1 receiving, 1 rushing later in the first quarter. He missed the second half of the first game with some stomach issues. When you have him back and he's full strength, this obviously shows what he can do. He was the GLIAC Offensive Player of the Week. How impressive was his performance?
It was impressive, and the good part for us is there was 2 runs. He went the wrong way on a run, and Bart had to eat it, and there was another protection he messed up. So we can still keep him pretty humble about things too. But he's really, from a physical standpoint, he's very unique. He's got speed. You saw in the first run, as you mentioned, DJ, he ran away from the entire Lake Erie defense. So he's got some top-end speed, but he can also run with some power. He's got good ball skills. That's why we scripted him for that touchdown pass down in the red zone. He has good ball skills. He can catch the ball in the backfield, and he's not afraid to get involved in protection. So, he's got a little bit of work to do on some of the mental aspect things, but for the most part, he's a pretty complete physical back. And we worked hard in recruiting. I'm not afraid to say we worked extremely hard in recruiting to get Martavius here, and he's bought into Grand Valley football. So he was a Northern Illinois commit, and he's at Grand Valley State. He's a legitimate MAC level tailback, and that's I think starting to show itself based on the field from his last year when he had 331 yards against College State Pueblo in the playoff game, and then even you're starting to see him now. So. We are not going to be a one tailback system. He is clearly our number 1 tailback, but you can't get through the games and the style of play we have with just one back. It's not going to be applicable. So that's why Terrell Dorsey is a big piece of the puzzle. Christian Lumpkin is part of the piece of the puzzle, and then we keep working these other tailbacks too. I think we have 2 young tailbacks, redshirt freshman tailbacks, and Bryce Young Walls is playing a lot of special teams, and he's got some touches in there. And then Caleb Richard too. So that's a position we've mentioned has depth, and that's a good thing for Grand Valley. And obviously Martavius is the number 1 guy.
Mitch, comment for us on the emergence here, only through a couple of games, but really starting to develop. Erston Smith, right now leading the team in receiving yards with 182, touchdown receptions with 2. He's averaging over 36 yards a grab, and some of those are very difficult catches he's made. Tell us a little bit more about him, what you're seeing in practice, and then how that translates to the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Sometimes with athletes, some guys can come in and quickly pick things up. Nick Dotson last year is a true freshman. Other times athletes, it takes a little bit longer, whether it's basically physical or sometimes mental, or there's an adjustment maybe to everything at Grand Valley. I think Erston is an individual that I give a lot of credit to. I think early on in his career, there were some frustrations. There were some frustrations from some things, just not quite reaching his potential. But, he stepped up big for us in the playoffs. He really, I think, the biggest thing about him having to be thrust into action, we had no Jamie Potts in the playoffs. We were banged up. Brandon Bean had the broken foot. Erston stepped up, the Ferris playoff game, everybody knows the big catch and stuff, but he really stepped up in those playoffs. And I think those experiences, Steve, allowed Erston to gain some confidence. It really allowed him to gain some confidence. And that was probably a big thing that was lacking, was just some confidence in his ability to go do it. And coming into fall camp, I've said this on a lot of things that we've done from a media perspective, there wasn't a wideout that had a better camp than Erston Smith. He was absolutely confident, was catching everything. So he's very unique. He's big. When you get down there in the field, stand next to him, he's big. You can't press him up. People press him up. He absolutely physically abuses you at the line of scrimmage. But he's also got some speed to him too, so he can get behind some people. And so as I've talked about this at the media lunch, we feel like we have a receiving core. Erston has happened to be, he plays our boundary receiver, which we call the W. And because on the way some people have been playing us, whether it's from a coverage standpoint or some personnel standpoints, there's been a few more throws to Erston based on the position he's playing. And that's why he's had statistically, a couple good games. And he's earned the right based on camp. But we're not down on Matt Williams. We're not down on Brandon Bean. We're not down on Nick Dodson. It's kind of the way the things have worked out a little bit, and more than anything based on who we're playing and what they're showing us schematically. So it's nice to have that type of balance at the receiving core. If you try to roll things to the field, we have Erston the boundary. If you try to roll things towards Erston, you have Matt Williams and Brandon Bean and Nick Dodson and some of these other guys out to the field. And he's just been the benefit a little bit of some personnel matchups and also some coverage matchups here. But he's done a great job. I'm excited about how far Erston has come in our program. He's from Elkhart, Indiana. And, this is his junior season. And he's really developed quite a bit as a person, as a player over the course of his career.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. Those great catches and a lot already this year with more to come. All right, into a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk with the defensive coordinator, Jim Lewis. He's up next as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell continues. We're live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
And we're back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale with a GVSU Football Weekly Report. Head coach Matt Mitchell, of course. Steve Lloyd-Jones, DJ Foster alongside, as we're going to talk with defensive coordinator Jim Lewis right now. This segment also presented by Earhart Construction, the official construction company of the Grand Valley Sports Network. And Jim, great to have you again. And boy, through a couple of games, just talking with head coach Matt Mitchell about both sides of the ball playing so well. Statistically, everything looks great. Your thoughts, though, on what you're seeing and the details involved?
Yeah, we're excited where we're at right now, and just the fact that we've played 2 weeks in a row, two offenses that a year ago had 1,100 yards on us and like 65 points, 70 points, something like that. And, credit to the rest of our defensive staff, Nick Postman, E.J. Whitlow, Coach Mitchell, myself. We sat down. We had trouble with certain types of offenses, spread offenses, whatnot, and we spent a lot of time, going through everything and quality control and what we were doing, how we were doing it, and just base defense. And we felt like we had a good plan. We were able to put that in place in spring ball and fall camp. And at this point, things have been going well. So, we're going to see people that do similar things, and we got to, continue to grow that package and these things. But, we're excited where we're at.
Coach, I'm sure you're happy with the victories. Does the little number 0, does pitching a shutout actually matter to you guys, to your players, to anybody on the staff? I mean, you've only given up second half touchdowns here so far, fourth quarter against Tiff and third quarter against Lake Erie. Does that matter to you guys at all?
No, not really. Stats are stats. We're more it's more important that for us that our kids, play within the system, play within, their techniques that they're taught, play as hard as they can, and, good things will only happen if we do those things. We're not worried about yardage. We're not worried about points. We just know that, if the scoring differential is +1 for Grand Valley State, we win the game.
Sure.
So our job is to get the ball back to the offense any way we can. Third down stops, turnovers, however it's got to get done. That's our job. So,
talking with defensive coordinator Jim Lewis tonight here on the show. I think maybe for fans sometimes the thought is we're going against a spread or whatever the case may be, and they're all the same, but they're not the same, are they?
No, not at all.
Break down those challenges a little bit and what that means for you guys as you go against that.
Yeah, actually, we're going to see in 3 weeks now, 3 weeks in a row. If you just looked at the film and looked at the formations, you would say, hey, these offenses are all similar to each other. And when, in fact, that there's a lot of difference to them in how they attack you and how they're structuring what they're doing. So each week is a different week. And we tell our guys that last week was last week, we move on to this week. And they're going to have a different nuance in how they do a certain scheme, play, what have you. And so from our standpoint, we always have to look at different ways that, we have to be able to do our base defense against their base offense. So, and it's going to continue to be that way. Some teams are more heavy to throw the football. Some are going to set the throw up by the run game. And what, really this 4 wides, 3 wides that you see, it's when they're in that style of offense, a lot of times they're trying to spread you out to create running alleys to be able to run the ball. It's not just to throw the ball all the time. So,
coming into the season, what did you and your coaches on the defensive side of the ball think was going to be a strength of this defense, and has that played out through the first couple of weeks?
Well, the strengths that we thought we had going in personnel-wise was experience that we had at the defensive line and the linebacker position. A year ago, if you just looked at the stats and you looked at some of the film, you could tell that we were young in the defensive backfield. So we knew going into it that, we should be able to do a good job in defending the run and having solid run fits and getting a pass rush. Those were areas of strengths that, in our depth that we had. Coach Postma with the defensive secondary, we've worked really hard, and those guys have experience. They're gaining confidence, and it's really showed up in the first 2 games. And so we feel like all 3 segments of our defense is definitely grown, but those were the areas that we felt really good about going into the season.
Jim, let's talk about some new names, maybe guys that are starting to make a run for moving up the depth chart. Who knows, maybe more than that, but new names of guys that are starting to make plays. Talking about Deshaun Hurley and Kalen Dunham and names like that. Who else on the defense are you noticing really starting to emerge right now?
Yeah, the benefit to having 2 games now where we've had comfortable leads going into the third and the fourth quarter is that we've been able to play a large number of our guys and young players and getting a chance to see what they can do. And most people probably don't know this, but, I was a college football player, and, I remember those first few games as a redshirt freshman, and the game is so fast, and these guys, and I've been impressed with a lot of guys that have gone out there and played their first college games. Jalen Harden, he's a safety. He played probably 20 reps in the first game. He played very well. Isaiah Nkansa, he's a linebacker. He didn't play as well in the first game. In the second game, I think he was one of our top tacklers, and he had a great game against Lake Erie. But, yeah, the 2 guys you mentioned, Deshaun Hurley and Kalen Dunham, they've played very well. And Deshaun has the experience. So, but at the end of the day, we really feel good about our depth and the young guys, and just hopefully we can continue to develop that week in and week out.
Through 2 weeks, just 2 touchdowns given up by the Laker defense. As a defensive coordinator, Jim Lewis, with us on the show. Coach, great job so far. We look forward to seeing how you guys defend Northern Michigan this weekend. So thanks for joining us on the show tonight.
Thanks, DJ. Thanks, Steve.
That's Jim Lewis, defensive coordinator here on the show, and GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell. When we come back, we're going to talk about Northern Michigan. We'll bring head coach Matt Mitchell back in, and we'll see what the Wildcats offer Grand Valley State this weekend. Again, a 7 p.m. start from Lubber Stadium. It'll be Family Day, so come on out, get your tickets by calling 616-331-3200 or visit gvsutickets.com. Come on back for more of the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
So Erston Smith with the score there. Grand Valley State defeated Lake Erie 55-7 last Saturday night in Lubber Stadium. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. I'm DJ Foster, joined by the play-by-play voice. You just heard him there, Steve Lloyd-Jones. It's time to look ahead to Northern Michigan, though. We've talked about Lake Erie a little bit. Let's go ahead with the opponent breakdown, brought to you by Kent Equipment Solutions that turn work into play.
Yeah, that's right. As we welcome back head coach Matt Mitchell and Family Day, always a big event out on campus. With, of course, the exclamation point being the game itself, 7 o'clock kickoff against Northern. And just talking with defensive coordinator Jim Lewis about different styles of offense. And, Coach, but coming into this, it sure looks like a team that puts up a lot of points. Northern Michigan through a couple of games, and a very good quarterback in Shea Brown. Yeah,
I've had the opportunity, even though we haven't played them here the last 2 years, Northern Michigan has not been on our schedule. Obviously, you see a lot of tape, and you see a lot of crossover tape. So we're well aware of what Shea Brown has done in the GLIAC from a statistical standpoint. He is breaking Northern Michigan records almost on a weekly basis, passing records, whether it's I think career yardage, career touchdowns. There's a lot of things that he's either knocking on the door or has currently. So it's even though it's a kind of a spread offense, as Coach Lewis was mentioning, this is a little bit different than the past 2 offenses we have faced. Shea Brown is a little bit more of a pocket passer, but they do spread the ball in a lot of different areas of the field. You know, I think that it's a unique passing game. It's a little bit more of a passing game that can stretch you both horizontally, with receivers running, side to side and doing some screen game. It can also stretch you vertically and throw the ball down the field. And I think that's one thing, we didn't see a lot last week against Lake Erie College. That's just not the way that they're designed. You didn't see a lot of balls that were trying to be pushed down the field. So even though you're talking about a shotgun set with 4 wide receivers out there similar to Lake Erie, there are differences in terms of the way they're going to try to attack you, and that'll be new for our DBs. I think the ball's going to be pushed down the field a little bit more that way. So he's very accurate. He's very experienced. He's been in that system now with Coach Ostrowski for a number of years. I think they have a really good understanding of what they're trying to get done. They have a scheme that can complement some of their talent. I think they've probably got off to a couple slow starts at the beginning of each of the first quarters of these games, as they have some new receivers on the outside. But once they've gone up and running, they've been able to score some points in their last 2 games and have had 2 overtime games. So that would be a difference between Northern Michigan and Grand Valley too. They've had some really competitive games. They've had to make some plays in some really tight competitive situations down the stretch in the fourth quarter. And the Angelo State is a playoff team. A couple years ago, they went up and beat Michigan Tech in the playoffs at Houghton. And so Angelo State went up there in a non-conference game last week and was able to get an overtime victory, but it was a very close affair throughout. So if that's their offense, it centers around the quarterback, like to throw it around. Defensively, I think the strength of their defense is their defensive line. I think this will be the best defensive line probably up to this point that we have faced from a physical standpoint, just from a size and physicality standpoint. And there's also some challenges for us as coaches. They hired a new defensive coordinator in the offseason. And so you don't have maybe the volume of tape that you would have maybe with somebody that you know in the league that you've had some familiarity with. And so we might have to make some adjustments. I think we've talked quite a bit about that as a staff, potential adjustments that might have to be made early on in the contest in an effort to try to figure out what we're getting and how they're going to try to defend us. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's always awesome here in the GLIAC. We have some great football here in the GLIAC. We're obviously losing Hillsdale, but the rest of these schools are all staying in the GLIAC, and Northern Michigan has quite a tradition. I don't think people forget that sometime of the tradition. They've won a national championship and have done a lot of things up there. So all of our schools in the state of Michigan are really competitive in football, and I don't think Northern Michigan is an exception to that.
Yeah, and saying you haven't played them since 2013, so that breeds some issues, and a new defensive coordinator. You mentioned this may be the strongest defensive line that they've had, but they've given up 35 and 46 points the first 2 weeks. Obviously, overtime
right. Some
games.
of those stats are a little skewed because you go to overtime,
right.
And you get those overtime scores and triple overtime and all that stuff. That attempts to try to get your defensive stuff out of whack from a statistic standpoint.
Right, but it does appear that they're prone to giving up some yardage and some points. So, what do you think, other than trying to adjust some things on the fly, that you'll be able to hopefully take advantage of?
Well, I think we're going to do what we do. It's still about Grand Valley. I think we are a team that we want to try to be explosive. I mean, that's something we put up on our walls, and we're one of our hallmarks is to be explosive. So explosive runs, explosive passes are very important to us. So we have to find ways to try to generate explosive plays. We have to find ways to get the football to our best players. And some of that's easy when you hand the ball off to Martavius Carter, Terrell Dorsey. Some of that requires a little bit more orchestration when you have to drop back to pass and try to throw it to some of your wideouts and get it done out there. But we're going to try to find ways to be explosive and look for opportunities to do that.
Yeah, Northern Michigan with a quarterback like that, a guy who he's a big guy too, isn't he? I mean, the measurables stand out and a big arm to test your secondary a little bit, which hasn't really been tested vertically a whole lot.
No,
yet.
You're exactly right, and that's the point I made. Took a look at Tiffin. Tiffin was a lot of run-pass options, a lot of throws that were out pretty quick, and we were able to get a little pressure on third down with Antonio Pipkin. And then Lake Erie doesn't really attempt in their scheme to really throw the ball down the field very much. So that will be a challenge for us. I think at the end of the day, one way to hopefully neutralize a strong passing attack is to try to, harass the quarterback, try to get some pressure on the quarterback. And however we got to get that done, I think it's important that we try to make him uncomfortable back there, and that's got to be a job of the people up front. It's got to start up front. So it's a lot easier to play defensive back when you're able to get some pressure on a quarterback and make him feel a little uncomfortable.
You mentioned earlier in the week when you're healthy and you get through these games and your starters don't have to play as much, you can start working on Monday, even Sunday, at starting to get better for the week. How do you think the week of practice has been leading up to today at this point?
Yeah, good. I said I think we do a lot. I think we've really made a lot of progress at Grand Valley on tracking our players and knowing where our players are at. And so we come in on Sunday and take a look at some of the numbers we're looking at from the games, the reps, and some of the data that we get. And so that allows us to go out on Tuesdays and have some really competitive practices. And so we've done a lot of stuff the last 2 weeks, good on good ones-on-ones. I mean, we've lined up and played GV1s versus GV1s on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, and really got after it. And we've really pushed our kids extremely hard this week. And so I think they've embraced that. I think I have with the experience that we have and a veteran crew, and we have good leadership, they get that, and they don't balk at the fact, it's practice, but we've had some competitive practices, and I know you have to get ready for Northern Michigan, but at the end of the day, I'm still in charge of, and we're still in charge of the performance of Grand Valley football, and we can't lose sight of that. Our fundamentals, our techniques, the things that we do are the reason that we're sitting here 2-0. It's not over game planning and not over analyzing our opposition. So we go out there and hey, what do we have to do at Grand Valley within Grand Valley's football center? What do we have to do to be successful? And so we do those things, and we compete against each other in practice against those things. We do one-on-ones, wideouts, DBs. We've done a lot of ones-on-ones to try to keep that edge and keep trying to sharpen that sword.
Very good stuff. All right, that's the opponent breakdown segment for you. As the Lakers this Saturday at home against Northern Michigan, it's family day, and the game with the kickoff at 7 o'clock. When we come back after this break, the keys to the game. What do the Lakers need to do to get a victory for it? Well, head coach Matt Mitchell will tell us as the GVSU Football Weekly Report continues with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Back with the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. We're live inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Terrell Dorsey, very nice game for him yet again through a couple of weeks, doing a great job there. As Dorsey on the night, 55 total yards on just 6 carries, including that touchdown. Back with head coach Matt Mitchell to talk about the keys to the game this week against Northern Michigan. Keys to the game presented by Fox Motors, only the best. Coach, how do you see it?
Well, I think one thing that we've done a really good job of, we haven't spoken of yet, there's 2 things I think we've done a great job of. One, turnovers. We have yet to turn the ball over in the offensive side of the ball. That's a big thing. Turnover margin and explosive play margin are big markers for us. So we've done a good job with ball security with our skill guys, and obviously Bart's made some great decisions. So we need to continue that. We can't allow Northern Michigan with the explosive offense to get extra possessions because we are sloppy with the football. And so, that'll be a big part of it. I also think penalties. When you look at the first 2 games, we have only had 2 penalties on each of the first 2 contests. The penalty differential in these first 2 games has been almost, like 12-2, 14-2. We have not shot ourselves in the foot, quote unquote, with penalties and doing stupid stuff. And so I think, again, we need to maintain that level of discipline. When you watch the way that our offense operates from the whistle of the previous snap to the next snap, we've been very efficient in our operations. We've been able to substitute personnel. We haven't had delayed games. We've been very efficient with our lineups and stuff like that, and need to continue to hammer that. A lot easier to get a first down when you got to go 10 yards instead of 15 yards. And then we haven't had a lot of stupid penalties throughout the course of the snap. Up to this point, I'll knock on wood, our defense has not had a penalty yet. We have not had a penalty. We've not jumped off sides. We've not had any type of pass interference. There's been no personal fouls by Grand Valley football. And, I think that's really critical. And so we have to continue to do those type of things. We have to play that type of football. There's things that show up on the stat sheet that are important, but there's also intangibles. And we really try to hit some of those intangibles with our team. And being disciplined is one of our intangibles. Being physical is one of our intangibles. Being excited to play. When obviously you're at home in front of Leber Stadium, it's easy to be excited to play, but you got to be excited to play. You got to be physical. You got to be disciplined. And I think that we've done some of that intangible stuff that if you're on the sidelines you feel, but don't show up on a stat sheet on Sunday, and need to continue to do those things, and that will lead to positive outcomes.
How do you view Northern Michigan, not only as your Week 3 opponent, that's who the schedule says you have to play, but also kind of setting a tone for the next 2 weekends with 2 road trips down to Ohio, back-to-back weekends? How do you kind of view that all in one, I don't know if you can kind of
Sure.
tunnel vision with just the one game, but setting a tone and getting some momentum going into those 2 road contests?
Yeah, obviously this is a very unique oddity with our schedule that we got from the GLIAC, starting with 3 straight home games. And so it's kind of rare that we had this opportunity. We need to take advantage of this opportunity. There's always been great crowds. I think this game is sold out. Our family weekend's always been a big popular event here at Grand Valley's campus, so I'm sure we'll have a great atmosphere, a great environment. That cuts both ways. I think that is an advantage for us, but that also can provide a motivation for Northern Michigan. They're coming down here and playing those type of crowds and things. I think they're going to be excited to play. So with 2 games coming up on the road down in the state of Ohio, yeah, this is critical. But I've always said, DJ, like every game here is critical. When you play football at Grand Valley, every practice is critical. Everything is really critical. And so obviously this game is no different than that. And want to try to keep building. You look at the combined score 100-14, and if you're on the outside, you jump to conclusions. I don't think that's how our coaches and our players view things. I think we always talk about progress over perfection within our building, and so continue to make progress as we head into Week 3 is really important.
Those are the keys to the game presented by Fox Motors, only the best. Again, Grand Valley State, Northern Michigan on Family Day on Saturday night. There are still some tickets available. Call 616-331-3200 or visit gvsutickets.com. And also tomorrow night, the Lakers soccer team, the 3-time defending national champions, will have their home opener against Saginaw Valley State. That's a 7 p.m. start under the lights. They'll also be at home on Sunday against Ohio Dominican at 1 p.m. When we come back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell, we'll bring in Marquez Goldman for the player interview. That'll be fun. Matt Mitchell will give him some fun questions, so that'll be up right after this break. The GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell is presented by GVSUTeamShop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Brandon Bean with a nice running touchdown there. The Lakers 42 points in that first half. Back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. We're live inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones, DJ Foster, Matt Mitchell. Special guest right now. We're going to talk with linebacker Marquez Goldman in just a moment. You know, our player interview brought to you each week by Country Dairy, the official milk of GVSU athletics. The Lakers at 2-0 and Coach, this guy a big player on your defense, isn't he?
Yeah, Steve. He's really been a player. He's an All-American last year, All-Conference player, and has pretty much been a starter almost for 4 straight years coming into the season. So, very unique skill set. He's kind of a linebacker, but not really. Kind of a DB, not really. But he plays our nickel position, which is our position that's kind of an outside linebacker to the field. And to be quite honest, in my 13 years at Grand Valley, typically we've had the best defenses when we've been strong on the D-line. We've had a nickel that could do a variety of things, and Marquez is fortunate enough to join us and is that type of player. So thanks for being on. You nervous?
No, not at all.
Of course not. Okay. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up at Grand Valley State.
Originally came from Ypsilanti. Went to Ypsilanti High School. Coming out of high school, had to take the JUCO route. Had to make it tougher on myself. So I went to GRCC for a year, and Coach Mitch out of high school kept his word for me. And after doing a year at GRCC, I came up here, and we're here today.
Yeah, so basically I saw Marquez in high school and was a very talented player and knew there might be a little trouble in gaining admissions, but I told him if you can go to GRCC, not play, don't waste your eligibility at that place, save a year of eligibility, and you pass 24 hours and at a 2.5 that we could get you into Grand Valley, and we have to save a scholarship back for you. So he did that. He went over to Grand Rapids Community College on his own with really no support whatsoever and kind of did things financially on his own and earned his way into Grand Valley. And I was, even at that point, I had a ton of respect for you based on how you did that. So kind of took that the first year as a redshirt. So you kind of double redshirted your first year, and then you started playing. Talk about the transition from maybe junior college to some of the things that occur here at Grand Valley from an educational athletic standpoint.
The first thing that I learned is everything move fast. That's the first thing Coach Ginn told me when I was late for class. I had 8 a.m. lifting, and after that, I didn't know where my class was, and he had to give me a ride. And he said, "One thing you'll learn here is everything moves fast, Marquez." So that's the big transition that I had here. The second thing is I know that they took it very seriously. I know other colleges that I've heard they doesn't take academics too serious. So I mean, for our graduation rate to be as high as it is, I really take that into consideration.
It's good to hear. As you progress through as a player, I think you have a lot of respect in our locker room. Talk a little bit about the relationships you have. You seem like a person that's got a lot of strong personal relationships with other teammates in the locker room. Talk a little bit about this year specifically 16, but just overall with Grand Valley, how you feel about our chemistry with our locker room and some of the people that you associate with.
Overall, I still keep in contact with people that were seniors when I was a freshman. I still keep in contact with them. That's how we are just at Grand Valley. And as far as this year, I came into this year after taking a semester off. That made me realize how much I missed it and what I actually had before me. So this year I came in with just an aspect of just taking every second, taking every minute with my teammates and just having fun. And right now I try to get to know everybody and hang out with everybody.
And maybe not a lot of people know you're a father too. Talk about some of the challenges with being a student, an athlete, family man, all those things. Talk about time management and how that goes down.
Yeah, I got a 2-year-old daughter named Shaylin. I wear her name on my back plate every game. So, I mean, if nobody see it, then next game you'll be able to see it. But that at first it was the toughest thing ever. Like I couldn't handle being a dad and then doing the work and then doing the football thing. Like my time, it was everywhere. So it wasn't enough hours in the day. But I mean, as time grew on, I started getting more just accumulated to how everything works, and then I got back up to school and her mom actually started making it easier on me and started taking more of just financial and everything else, dealing with her, just taking care of her. So right now, I'm in my last semester, so her mom made through it. So about to get finished with school, get my degree, and be able to help out.
Talked a little bit about what your degree is going to be in and how many classes you're taking this semester and what you hope to do, as you start moving forward.
My degree is in sport management, getting a minor in ad and PR. And right now, I don't know why I did this, but I took 2 of the hardest classes in my last semester. I got accounting and I got stats, and those are 2 of the hardest classes that I got right now. And right now, I'm late to practice just because one of them. So I gotta find a way to do it. Coach Mitch always tells us find a way, so I got to find a way.
Good to hear. Well, I appreciate everything you've done for the program over the course of time, and I count you as a success story based on where you're at and what you've done at this point. So let's get after Northern and finish this thing the right way.
Love you, Coach Mitch.
All right,
Marquez Goldman, great to have you here on the show and to talk with you about your career here as a Laker. Well, the Lakers in action this Saturday against Northern Michigan, 7 o'clock the kick. When we come back after this timeout, more of a look around the conference for you, a little team landscape and look around the region, national rankings and other things. That's straight ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell continues on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We'll be right back.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Great action from Ali Ajami there, backup quarterback for the Lakers in Saturday's win. That was a 55-7 victory over Lake Erie College. Back with the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. Show presented by GVSUTeamShop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game. Back with DJ Foster and head coach Matt Mitchell. And let's take a look around the conference a little bit, DJ, some rankings and other things.
So, Coach, last week I think the biggest game was obviously Ferris going up to Houghton and getting a 30-28 win with a late field goal. Ohio Dominican, after not scoring against Ferris State, put up 49 points against Findlay. So you have 4 teams right now who do not have a loss in the conference at any point, and 3 teams who don't have a win. What have you kind of seen throughout the first couple of weeks? So there's a lot of teams at 1-1, or like I said, 4 teams at 2-0.
Yeah, obviously with a 7 o'clock Saturday night game, there's a lot of time to kill when you're a coach on a Saturday. So you watch. I was able to watch the play-by-play of the game with Michigan Tech and Ferris State. That was a great football game. I mean, it was 2 teams, very strong teams. So it came down to the wire, and Ferris made a kick at the end. I think Tech had some opportunities in the third quarter, turned the ball over on 4 straight possessions. But that's probably what you think when you have to go to Houghton and play up at Houghton from that standpoint. So, I think Hillsdale now is 2-0. They finished the season, I believe, winning 4 or 5 straight in 2015 with a new quarterback, and so I think they've won 6 or 7 games straight, and so Keith Otterbein does a great job there, and they continue to, kind of quietly are putting together some wins, there. And then Tiffin got back, had a win against a new, not this year, but next year, Davenport will be in the GLIAC. So Tiffin was able to get a hard-fought 20-17 win over Tiffin. So Ashland took care of business against Wayne. It was tight at halftime, and then Ashland exploded in the third quarter, put up a lot of points to beat Wayne State. I think Wayne State is a good football team. I think they got some guys on defense. DJ Zazula, their quarterback, is now in his second year starting, but Ashland has everybody back, and a lot of people are talking about Ashland. So, I don't know if there was any score that I was necessarily shocked by when you take a look at the league play. It's a very competitive league. I mean, there's at this point in time, even though I know we've had a couple lopsided victories up to this point, this is a very balanced league. It's a very competitive league. I think that was evidenced by the fact that we had 3 teams in the playoff last year, and I've always made the argument, those other teams that we played were probably the best teams that we played in the playoffs. And so it's kind of bearing that way out when you take a look at the scores and what people are doing and, impress our league. Sad that we're losing some of these people out of this conference. That's unfortunate. But the ones that are staying, I think when you take a look at Ashland and Tiffin and you take a look at us, all the schools up in Michigan, they're playing some really good football, and some of those are at the top of the GLIAC leaderboard right now.
With head coach Matt Mitchell, Steve Lloyd-Jones, DJ Foster, the segment presented by Modern Office. Bring spaces to life. Well, around the conference, I know you're focused on your game, but around the conference, Dominican and Tech may be one of the other big matchups.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think probably a lot of people are surprised by ODU week 1 getting blanked, but then they came back strong against Findlay and beat Findlay. Tech's coming off a loss. And they have to travel from, Houghton all the way down to Columbus, Ohio. That's not an easy trip for those guys to make, as they head down there. So a couple teams that have, in the past 4 or 5 years here in the GLIAC, have made the playoffs. And so that'll be a big matchup. I think you're looking at 2 squads 1-1, and it'd be very, very tough at this point in time to suddenly find yourself at 1-2 if you're Ohio Dominican or 1-2 if Michigan Tech. So those are, I don't know if there's ever a must-win game, I suppose, unless you're at Grand Valley, everyone's a must-win game. But if you're one of those 2 places, that's your season is looking at staring you right in the face on game 3. You don't want to drop and go 1-2.
And game 3 for Grand Valley State this weekend will be against Northern Michigan, 7 p.m. start on Family Day, this Saturday night. First 1,000 students receive an official game day T-shirt from Campus West. For tickets, call 616-331-3200 or visit gvsutickets.com. Come on back after this 90-second break. We'll wrap things up here on the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell. It's all presented by gvsuteamshop.com right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
A lot of fireworks last Saturday night inside Lubber Stadium. We're looking for the same thing this weekend. It's the GVSU Football Weekly Report. DJ Foster, Steve Lloyd-Jones, and head coach Matt Mitchell. Before we wrap things up here on the show, we'd like to thank one of our fine sponsors, Allendale True Value. Behind every project is a true value. Coach, week 1 was Laker Blue Night, the All Blues. Last week was the blackout, all black jerseys. This week we were just talking, is your personal favorite coming up?
Yeah, white helmet, black jersey, white pants. My personal favorite. It probably has to do with the fact that 2013 we played Saginaw Valley back-to-back. If you remember that last regular season to get in, and then we played them in the playoffs first round and cranked up that uniform combo. So I have fond memories, fond memories of that combination. We had that back-to-back playoff wins against, it wasn't a playoff win the first time, but the playoff win against Saginaw Valley.
Same jersey both times?
Yeah, yeah, we rocked it. We made a point. Like, we played that last regular season game against Saginaw, and we didn't play real well. The NCAA, which I would argue I think it was a mistake, the way they seeded it out, they had us play them again. We were just like, hey, here's what's going to happen. We're going to play the same team at the same stadium. We're going to wear the same uniforms, and we're going to play better than we did the previous week. We didn't play well enough. And so it was a great validation for kind of what we do. I thought that was a little unfortunate that those 2 teams made the playoffs and had to play each other within the span of 7 days. I didn't think that was very smart. But at the end of the day, we were able to come out victorious. And so we kind of made the point with the uniform thing and with everything that we did that we didn't play well enough. We're just going to roll it back and do better the next time.
You know, put you on the spot a little bit. I thought that first half, one of the best I've ever seen this past Saturday. Was that the best you've had as a coach?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, everything's within context. You know, there's always context with everything you do. You know, like, again, it depends on where you think your team is at that current point in time. Like, you know, I think that we still have some things that we can get better at. I'm the special teams guy, Steve, and right now our return game stinks. I mean, it absolutely stinks. Our kickoff returns and our punt returns they're not good enough. I mean, it's very frustrating when I take a look at who we got out there. And we spent so much time this week on our 2 return games. So, you know, I'm looking at it, and that, you know, we've had some great punt returns and some good kickoff returns and had some special teams play. It's been great. Now, our coverage units are awesome. Like, our kickoff coverage unit right now, it's rocking and rolling. And I'll give Dan Madden, our freshman punter, he's doing a great job back there in the punt team. You know, we've only punted 6 times, but he's handled that extremely well. But our return units have got to get better. So until those start picking up, it's going to be hard for me just being the special teams guy to feel like we've got everything, you know, all the boxes checked yet.
Just any quick thoughts on Family Day this weekend? Obviously, we talked about it's a near sellout. There's going to be a ton of people.
Yeah,
there.
I made a mistake. It's not sold out. You can always buy tickets, GVSULakers.com, so I apologize for that. But no, Family Day is kind of, it's been great. You know, it's been a tradition, you know, since I've been here, year 13, that we've always had a lot of families, not just student athletes, but families of Grand Valley students come back and really come to our contests and support us. And so that's kind of cool. We always get great student support at Grand Valley games, but it's nice to have, you know, those home sides filled up too. And I think that's probably, hopefully, is the case Saturday night. Weather looks good.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time, no doubt about it. Guys, thanks so much. Great show. Our thanks as well to defensive coordinator Jim Lewis for stopping by, talking about Grand Valley's excellent defense. And a big part of that, linebacker Marquez Coleman, also a part of our show tonight. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones for DJ Foster and head coach Matt Mitchell. Thanks for listening tonight to the GVSU Football Weekly Report here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. So long, everybody.